Doctor had worked as a veterinarian for 17 years. In that time, she had treated thousands of creatures from all across the galaxy. Her clinic sat on Station Threshold 9, a massive space station where beings from hundreds of different worlds came to live and work together. She had 6 hands, 4 hearts, and a crest of colorful feathers on her head that moved with her emotions. Right now, that crest was pressed flat against her skull in fear. The door to her clinic had opened 5 minutes ago. A human woman had walked in carrying something that made every alarm in its medical scanner scream warnings. The creature in the woman's arms looked like nothing had ever seen in all her years of study. It had 4 legs, though one was clearly broken and hanging at a wrong angle. Fur covered its body, but the fur was dirty and matted with dried blood. One eye was swollen completely shut. A deep cut across its side leaked dark red blood onto the woman's shirt. But the physical injuries were not what frightened the most. Her scanner was showing readings that made no sense. The creature's cells were arranged in ways her database did not recognize. Its nervous system worked on principles that seemed almost primitive compared to most species she knew. Worse, the animal was releasing chemicals into the air that triggered every danger instinct possessed. These were the pheromones of a predator, an aggressive hunter designed by evolution to kill. The human woman stood in the middle of the waiting room. She was tall, with dark brown skin and hair that had turned gray in many places. She wore simple work clothes that were now stained with blood. Her eyes, those strange forward-facing eyes that marked humans as predators themselves, looked directly at with an intensity that was hard to meet. "Please," the woman said. Her voice was quiet but firm. "He needs help." Translator chip planted in her brain turned the human's words into sounds she could understand. But understanding the words did not make this situation any easier. She looked down at her medical scanner again, hoping the readings had changed. They had not. In fact, new warnings were appearing. Unknown pathogen signatures detected. Potential biohazard classified as level 4. Recommended action: immediate quarantine and disposal of specimen. Disposal. The word made stomach turn. She did not like that word. She had become a veterinarian because she loved animals, because she believed every creature deserved care and compassion. But she also had responsibilities. She had other patients in the back rooms of her clinic. She had staff members who could get sick. She had regulations to follow. "I cannot help you," said. She hated how her voice sounded, weak and uncertain. "This creature is not registered in any database. I have no information about its biology. I do not know how to treat it safely." The creature in the woman's arms made a sound then, a soft whimpering noise that seemed to bypass translator completely. It was not words, but somehow understood it perfectly. It was the sound of pain, of fear, of suffering. It was a sound that had no language because pain was universal. The human woman's eyes never left face. "His name is Lucky," she said. "He's been with me for 13 years. He's my family." "I understand that this is difficult," began, trying to keep her voice professional. "But the contamination risk is too high. This animal could be carrying diseases that might spread to other patients. Its biology is completely unknown. Even if I wanted to help, I would not know where to start. Standard treatment protocols do not apply to unregistered species." "So you're saying you won't even try?" The human's voice remained quiet, but something in it had changed. It was not anger exactly. It was something harder to name. Disappointment, maybe, or determination. "I am saying that I cannot," said, putting emphasis on the word cannot, to make it clear this was not about unwillingness. "The regulations are very clear about this. Unknown biological entities must be reported to station security. They must be quarantined and studied before any treatment can be authorized. This process takes weeks, sometimes months." The human woman looked down at the creature in her arms. Lucky, she had called him. Up close, could see more details. The animal's remaining eye was trying to focus but kept drifting. Its breathing was shallow and fast. Its body trembled, though whether from cold or pain or fear could not tell. One of its paws, the front right one, was moving slightly, trying to reach up toward the woman's face. The woman adjusted her grip carefully, supporting the animal's weight more fully. She bent her head down until her forehead was almost touching the creature's head. "I made him a promise," she said, so quietly that had to lean forward to hear. "When I brought him onto this station when I left Earth, I promised him I would take care of him, that I would keep him safe." "Earth animals are not permitted on galactic community stations," said, though even as the words left her mouth, she realized how cold they sounded. "You must have known this when you brought him." "I did know," the woman admitted. She looked up at again. "I knew the rules, but Lucky was my family before I ever left Earth, before I knew there were aliens or space stations or galactic councils. I couldn't just abandon him. Would you abandon your family because of a regulation?" The question hit harder than she expected. She thought of her own family back on her home world. Her siblings, her parents, her own companion creature that had died 3 years ago from old age. Would she have abandoned any of them to follow rules? She wanted to say yes, that she was a rational being who understood the importance of order and regulation. But she was not sure that was true. "I sympathize with your situation," said, falling back on professional language because it felt safer than emotions. "But I have a duty to protect all the patients in this clinic. I cannot risk their health for one unregistered animal." The human woman nodded slowly. She did not look surprised by this answer. In fact, she looked like she had expected it, but she did not move toward the door. Instead, she walked across the waiting room to a row of chairs against the wall. She sat down carefully, adjusting Lucky in her lap so that his head rested on her legs. "What are you doing?" asked. "Waiting," the woman said simply. "For what?" "For you to change your mind, or for security to come, whichever happens first." The woman's hand moved to Lucky's head, her fingers scratching gently behind what assumed were his ears. "Easy there, friend," she murmured to the animal. "Easy, I've got you." Felt her crest rise slightly, a gesture of frustration among her people. This was not how things were supposed to go. The human was supposed to leave. She was supposed to take her unregistered animal and contact the proper authorities and follow the correct procedures. She was not supposed to sit down and refuse to move. "I will call station security," warned. "Okay," the woman said. She did not sound scared or angry. She just kept stroking Lucky's fur, kept murmuring those soft words. "Easy there, friend, easy." Walked back to her desk and picked up her communication device. She hesitated for just a moment, her finger hovering over the button that would summon security. In that moment, she looked back at the human woman and the dying creature in her lap. The woman had bent down again, her face close to the animal's head. She was saying something too quiet for to hear. Lucky's tail, a thin appendage at his rear end, moved slightly. Just once, a weak back-and-forth motion. Despite everything, despite the pain and the injuries and the fear, the animal was responding to the woman's voice, trying to communicate that he heard her, that he understood, that even while dying he recognized his friend. "Press the button. This is Doctor at the Threshold Medical Clinic. I have a Code 7 situation. Unregistered biological entity. I need security personnel immediately." The dispatcher confirmed the call. Security would arrive in less than 10 minutes. Set down the communication device and looked at the human woman again. "They are coming," she said. The woman nodded but did not speak. Her hand continued its gentle motion across Lucky's fur. Her eyes had closed now and could see moisture gathering at the corners. Humans cried, she remembered from her studies. They released salt water from their eyes when experiencing strong emotions. It was considered a sign of weakness by many species, this public display of feeling. But watching the woman sit there with her dying companion, refusing to leave him alone even in the face of arrest, was not sure weakness was the right word. It took a different kind of strength to care about something so much that regulations and consequences stopped mattering, to make a promise and keep it no matter what. Lucky made that sound again, that soft whimper of pain. And the woman whispered, "Easy there, friend. Easy, I'm not leaving you." Turned away and tried to focus on paperwork. But she could not stop her mind from running through possibilities. What could she do if she decided to help? How would she even begin to treat a creature whose biology she did not understand? The risks were real. The regulations existed for good reasons. But then again, so did promises. Station security arrived exactly 8 minutes later. The doors to the clinic opened with a hiss of air, and 2 officers walked in. Were a warrior species, tall and covered in thick armor plates that were part of their natural bodies. They wore additional protective gear over their natural armor, and they carried weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. To most species, were terrifying. But the human woman did not even look up when they entered. She sat in the same chair where she had been for the past 8 minutes. Lucky's head still rested in her lap. Her hand still moved in those slow, gentle patterns across his matted fur. She was talking to him in a voice so quiet that only the animal could hear the words. Every few seconds, Lucky's tail would move just slightly, responding to her voice. The lead officer stepped forward. His armor made clicking sounds as he moved. "Doctor," he said, his words coming through a translator just like S. "I am Security Officer 74. You need to come with us. The creature you are carrying is unregistered and poses a potential contamination risk to the station." The woman doctor finally looked up, watched from behind her desk, her 4 hearts beating faster than normal. She told herself she had done the right thing by calling security. This was their problem now, not hers, but she could not make herself look away. "I'm not going anywhere," doctor said. Her voice was still quiet, still calm. "Not without help for Lucky." The second officer moved to the side, positioning himself to block the door. It was a tactical move, realized. They were preparing to take Doctor by force if necessary. Her crest flattened again in distress. She had not wanted this. She had just wanted the woman to leave, to take her problem somewhere else. "Doctor, if you do not comply, we will be forced to remove you and the creature," the lead officer said. "This can be done peacefully or not. The choice is yours." For the first time since entering the clinic, Doctor's calm expression changed. Not to anger or fear, but to something else. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes, those predator eyes, focused completely on the lead officer. And when she spoke, her voice was no longer quiet. It was firm and clear. "No," she said. "The choice is yours. You can drag me out of here and watch this animal die on your station floor while I'm in custody, or you can let someone help him. But I won't abandon him. I made a promise." The lead's armor plates shifted, a sign of uncertainty that recognized. She had treated enough to understand their body language. This officer had not expected resistance. Most beings on the station followed orders from security without question. But humans were different. Everyone knew that. Humans had a reputation in the galactic community for being stubborn and emotional and difficult to control. "Your promise does not override station regulations," the officer said, though his voice sounded less certain now. "Maybe not," Doctor agreed. "But my promise means something to me. Does following regulations mean anything to you, or do you just do what you're told without thinking about it?" Crest rose in surprise at this challenge. No one spoke to security officers this way. It was disrespectful and dangerous. But Doctor did not seem worried about danger. She seemed worried only about the dying animal in her lap. Something changed in that moment. Lucky, who had been mostly still and quiet, suddenly tensed. His one good eye snapped open, focusing on the officers. His lips pulled back from his teeth, revealing fangs designed for tearing meat. A sound came from deep in his chest, low and rumbling. It was a sound that needed no translation. It was a warning. It was the voice of a predator telling other predators to stay away. Both officers stepped back. Their weapons, which had been pointed toward the floor, now lifted slightly. Energy crackled along the barrels. 4 hearts seemed to stop beating entirely. This was about to become violent. Lucky was going to attack and the officers were going to shoot, and Doctor was going to be caught in the middle. But Doctor did not pull away from Lucky. She did not try to restrain him or scold him. Instead, she leaned closer. Her hand found a spot behind Lucky's ear, the one that was not swollen and damaged. She scratched there gently, and her voice returned to that soft, steady murmur. "Easy there, friend," she said. "Easy. These people are just scared. They don't understand. Easy now." The growl continued for another moment. Then, gradually, it faded. Lucky's body relaxed back into Doctor's lap. His eye closed again. His breathing, which had quickened during those few seconds of alertness, slowed back down to its previous shallow rhythm. He had used up what little energy he had left trying to protect his human. Realized she was holding her breath. She let it out slowly, her crest rising and falling with emotion. What she had just witnessed should not have been possible. Lucky was dying. He was in terrible pain. Every instinct should have driven him to either flee or fight. But he had stopped fighting because his human asked him to. Because despite the pain and fear, he trusted her voice more than he trusted his instincts. The lead officer lowered his weapon slightly. His armor plates were shifting in complex patterns that could not fully read. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. It was softer, more uncertain. "That creature is dangerous," he said, but it sounded more like a question than a statement. "He's hurt and scared," Doctor replied, "just like any of us would be in his situation, but he's not dangerous to anyone who doesn't threaten him or me." The second officer spoke for the first time. "Doctor, even if the creature is not aggressive by nature, it still represents a biological hazard. Unknown species can carry unknown diseases. We cannot risk an outbreak on this station." "I understand your concern," Doctor said, "but Lucky has been on this station for 6 months. If he was carrying something contagious, you would have seen an outbreak by now. He's not the danger here. Time is the danger. Every minute we stand here arguing is a minute he's dying." Found herself nodding before she realized what she was doing. Doctor was right about that at least. Whatever Lucky was, whatever risks he might pose, he was definitely dying. The medical scanner on his desk continued to display his vital signs, and they were not good. His heart rate was erratic. His body temperature was dropping. If something did not change soon, the decision about what to do with him would be made by biology rather than by regulation. The lead officer turned to look at Doctor. "What is your professional opinion? Can this creature be treated safely?" All eyes in the room turned to her. Doctor's expression was neutral, but could see hope flickering behind it. The two officers waited for her answer as if it would solve everything, and felt the weight of that expectation like a physical thing pressing down on her. She looked at her scanner again, at the chaos of unknown biology it displayed, at the warnings and alerts that kept flashing across the screen. Every piece of her training told her to say no, to cite regulations and safety protocols and the impossibility of treating unknown species. It would be the logical answer, the safe answer. But then she looked at Lucky, at the way his body trembled with pain, at the blood still seeping from his wounds, at the broken leg that must have hurt terribly every time he moved, and she thought about what Doctor had said earlier. Would she abandon her own family because of a regulation? "I do not know," said honestly. "His biology is unlike anything in my database. Treatment would be experimental at best. I could do more harm than good." "But you could try," Doctor asked. Just 3 words, but they carried so much weight, so much hope. "I could try," admitted, "but—" "Wait," the lead officer interrupted. He was looking at Doctor with an expression that had never seen on a face before. "You said you made a promise. What kind of promise?" Doctor looked down at Lucky. Her hand continued its gentle motion, never stopping. "When I decided to leave Earth and join the galactic community, I had a choice. I could leave Lucky behind with family. He would have been safe and cared for. But he was already old by Earth standards. And I knew that if I left, I would probably never see him again. So I smuggled him aboard the transport. I broke the law. And when we were traveling through space, when he was scared by all the strange sounds and smells, I held him and told him that no matter what happened, I would keep him safe, that I would not let him die alone among strangers. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. Yesterday, some kids on the station thought it would be funny to test if Earth animals could survive in vacuum. They put Lucky in an airlock and started the decompression sequence. They didn't seal the inner door properly. When Lucky realized what was happening, he fought his way back inside. He was exposed to vacuum for almost 30 seconds. Then he crawled through half a kilometer of station corridors to find me. Felt something cold settle in her stomach. Vacuum exposure for 30 seconds. No wonder Lucky's injuries were so severe. No wonder he was dying. The fact that he was still alive at all was impossible. But he had survived because he was trying to get back to his human, because even while dying, he was keeping his own promise. The lead officer stood very still. His armor plates had stopped shifting. Finally, he spoke, and his voice was different than before, softer, more personal. "What is your name?" Doctor asked him. "Your real name, not your designation." The officer hesitated. He said, "Have you ever had a companion, someone who depended on you completely?" There was a long silence, then said, "My family kept a singing mite when I was young, before I joined the security service. It was small and not very smart, but it knew my voice. When I came home, it would make sounds for me." "Did you love it?" The question seemed to surprise. Love was a complicated word that meant different things to different species, but everyone understood the basic concept. The caring about something beyond yourself, the willingness to sacrifice for another's. "Yes," said quietly, "I did." "Then you understand," Doctor said. "Lucky is someone's singing mite. He's mine, and I can't let him die without trying everything possible to save him." Looked at his partner, then back at Doctor. His weapons powered down with a soft whine. "If Doctor is willing to attempt treatment, we will allow it under medical emergency protocols. But this facility must be quarantined. No one in or out until we confirm there is no contamination risk." Doctor's face broke into an expression of relief so strong that felt it like a wave. "Thank you," she whispered. Nodded, then he and his partner turned to leave, but before they reached the door, looked back at Lucky one more time. "I hope he survives," he said. Then they were gone, and the clinic was silent except for Lucky's labored breathing. Stood behind her desk, her crest rising and falling rapidly. She had just been given permission to do something that terrified her. To attempt treating a creature she did not understand using methods she would have to invent. Every rational part of her mind screamed that this was a mistake. But Doctor was looking at her with such hope, such trust, that could not bring herself to refuse. Not anymore. "I will need your help," said, her voice shaking slightly. "You know his biology better than any scanner. When I ask questions, you must answer quickly and honestly." "Anything," Doctor said. "Whatever you need." Walked around her desk and approached Lucky slowly. Up close, the damage was even worse than the scanner had shown, but she was committed now. She had agreed to try. "Then let us begin," she said, "and hope that trying is enough." Moving Lucky from Doctor's lap to the medical table was the first challenge. Every movement caused him pain, and Doctor's face showed that she felt every moment of it. Used 2 of her 6 hands to support Lucky's body while Doctor used both of hers. Together, they lifted him as gently as possible. Lucky whimpered but did not growl or try to bite. His one good eye opened briefly, looking at Doctor as if asking for reassurance. "Easy there, friend," she murmured. "We're going to help you, easy now." Once Lucky was on the table, activated the medical field that would help stabilize his body position. A soft blue glow surrounded him, supporting his weight without putting pressure on his injuries. Had used this technology thousands of times, but never on a species she knew nothing about. She watched the scanner carefully, ready to shut it down if Lucky's biology reacted badly. But his vital signs, strange as they were, remained steady. "First, I need information," said, pulling up a holographic display with two of her hands while the other four began preparing instruments. "What is Lucky's normal body temperature?" "About 37 degrees Celsius," Doctor answered immediately. Crest rose in alarm. "That is very hot. Most species maintain temperatures between 20 and 30 degrees. Earth mammals run warm," Doctor explained. "It's normal for us." "And his current temperature," checked the scanner, 29 degrees. "He has lost too much heat. We must warm him, but not too quickly or we will shock his system." She reached for a thermal blanket, adjusting its settings to increase slowly. "What about his heart? How many beats per minute is normal?" "Between 60 and 100 when resting, higher when active or stressed." The scanner showed Lucky's heart beating at 43 times per minute, weak and irregular. "Too slow. Much too slow." "His heart is failing," said, trying to keep her voice calm even though her own hearts were racing. "I can give him stimulants to strengthen the beats, but I do not know what chemicals are safe for his species." "Adrenaline," Doctor said. "His body makes it naturally when stressed. It increases heart rate and blood pressure, but too much can be dangerous." Searched her database for adrenaline. Her computer found a match, a compound similar to chemicals used in several other species. She could synthesize it, but the dosage would be pure guesswork. Too little and it would not help. Too much and it could kill him faster than his injuries. "I will start with a very small dose," decided. "Watch him carefully. Tell me immediately if anything seems wrong." She prepared the injection with 3 hands while monitoring Lucky's vital signs with her eyes and keeping one hand ready to grab emergency equipment. The needle went into Lucky's front leg, into what Doctor called a vein. Pushed down the plunger slowly, releasing a tiny amount of the stimulant into Lucky's bloodstream. For 10 seconds nothing happened. Crest was completely flat with anxiety. Then Lucky's heart rate began to increase. 45 beats per minute, 48, 52. It settled at 55, still low but stronger than before. Each beat was more forceful, pushing blood through his body with renewed vigor. "It's working," Doctor said, and could hear relief in her voice. But there was no time to celebrate. Lucky was still dying, just slightly slower now, turned her attention to the wounds. The deep cut across his side was the most serious. It had stopped bleeding on its own, but that was not necessarily good. It might mean Lucky's body was running out of blood to lose. The wound was dirty, filled with debris and possibly infected. "I need to clean this," said. "It will hurt him. Can you keep him calm?" Doctor moved to Lucky's head. She placed both her hands on either side of his face, gently, carefully. She brought her face close to his. "Hey, buddy," she said softly. "I know you're tired, I know it hurts, but we need you to be brave just a little longer, okay? Can you do that for me?" Lucky's tail moved once. Just a tiny motion, but it was there. Permission, maybe, or acknowledgement, or simply trust that whatever happened, his human was there with him. Began cleaning the wound. She used 2 hands to hold the tissue steady, 2 hands to operate the medical tools, and 2 hands to monitor instruments. The debris came out piece by piece. Dirt, fragments of metal, something organic that did not recognize. Each piece she removed made Lucky's body tense with pain, but Doctor kept talking to him in that soft, steady voice, and somehow Lucky stayed still. "You're doing so good," Doctor murmured. "So good, Lucky, such a brave boy. Easy there, easy." Once the wound was clean, could see the full extent of the damage. The cut had gone deep, through muscle and nearly to Lucky's internal organs. In any normal procedure, she would use a cellular regenerator to heal this. The device would encourage the body's own cells to multiply and repair themselves rapidly. But Lucky's cells were not like normal cells. The scanner still could not properly classify them. "If I use the regenerator wrong, his cells might multiply incorrectly," said, thinking out loud. "They could become tumors, or they might not multiply at all." "Dogs heal on their own," Doctor said. "Slower than with your technology, I'm sure, but their bodies can repair themselves if given time and kept clean. How much time? Weeks probably, for an injury this serious. Weeks. Lucky did not have weeks. He probably did not have days. Made a decision. I will use the regenerator on the lowest possible setting, just enough to speed his natural healing, not enough to cause problems. And I will seal the outer layer of the wound to prevent more infection. She adjusted the regenerator carefully. Her hands were shaking slightly, she realized. In 17 years of practice, she had never been this uncertain about a procedure. Every other time, she had protocols to follow, established methods proven by research and experience. Now she was inventing as she went, hoping that luck and instinct would be enough. The regenerator hummed as she passed it over the wound. She watched the scanner obsessively, looking for any sign that Lucky's cells were reacting badly, but incredibly they began to knit together. Slowly, much slower than with other species, but they were healing. The bleeding stopped completely. New tissue began to form over the damaged area. It's working, breathed. By the stars, it's actually working. Next was the broken leg. The scanner showed a clean break in the bone, which was fortunate. Clean breaks healed better than shattered ones, but the bone would need to be set properly, aligned so it could heal straight. This would be the most painful part. I do not have anesthesia that I know is safe for him, admitted. I will have to set the bone while he is awake. Can he endure that? Doctor's face was pale, but she nodded. He survived worse. We'll get through it together. She looked down at Lucky. Hey, friend, this is going to hurt. I'm so sorry, but I need you to trust me. Can you trust me? Lucky's eye opened, focusing on her face. His tail moved again, that small gesture of communication. On three, said, 1, 2, 3. She pulled the bone into alignment with 4 hands while using the other 2 to activate a stabilizer that would hold it in place. Lucky's scream was horrible, a sound of pure pain that made 4 hearts clench. He tried to move, to pull away, but Doctor held him steady while talking to him constantly. I know, I'm sorry, it's over now. It's done, you're okay, easy there, friend, easy. Tears were streaming down Doctor's face, but her voice remained steady. Her hands remained gentle, and gradually, Lucky's screams faded to whimpers, then to quiet panting. The worst was over. Applied a bonding agent to the break. It would harden around the bone, holding it in place like a cast while it healed. She also injected pain medication at the site, a general formula that worked for most species. She could only hope it would work for Lucky too. The damaged eye was next. Examined it carefully with specialized instruments. The eye itself was intact, but the tissue around it was badly swollen from the vacuum exposure. The blood vessels had burst, causing pressure that prevented the eye from opening. I can drain the fluid and reduce the swelling, said, but the eye may have permanent damage. He may not see from it again. As long as he's alive, Doctor said, that's all that matters. Used a microneedle to drain the excess fluid. It was delicate work that required all of her concentration. One wrong move and she could permanently blind the eye. But her hands, trained by years of practice, moved with precision. The fluid drained away. The swelling began to reduce. And after several minutes, Lucky's eye opened slightly, revealing a brown iris that looked up at her with exhaustion but also something else. Awareness, maybe. Understanding that they were trying to help. Hours passed, worked steadily, addressing each injury in turn. She cleaned and sealed smaller cuts. She treated burns on Lucky's paws from the vacuum exposure. She set up an intravenous line to give him fluids, something Doctor assured her was standard practice for Earth medicine. Every few minutes, she checked his vital signs, looking for signs of improvement or deterioration. Doctor never left Lucky's side. Her hands never stopped their gentle motion across his fur. Her voice never stopped its soft reassurance. Easy there, friend. You're doing so good, so good. Just rest now. We've got you. As the station's artificial day turned to artificial night, finally stepped back from the medical table. Her 6 hands ached. Her 4 hearts were exhausted from the constant stress. But Lucky was still alive. More than that, he was stable. His heart rate had improved to 60 beats per minute. His temperature was back to 37 degrees. His breathing, while still labored, was deeper and more regular. "He's going to make it," said, surprised by her own words. "I cannot believe it, but I think he's going to survive." Doctor made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. She bent down, touching her forehead to Lucky's. "Good boy," she whispered. "Such a good boy, you did it. You're going to be okay." Lucky's tail wagged, just once, just slightly, but unmistakably. It was the first time had seen him make a voluntary movement that was not about pain or fear. It was about joy, about recognition, about love. Felt something strange happening to her crest. It was rising and spreading in a pattern her people used to show deep respect. She was looking at something she had never fully understood before. The bond between human and animal. The promise that transcended logic and law. The love that made impossible things possible. "We should both rest," said. "I have set up monitors that will alert us if his condition changes. But for now, he needs sleep, and so do we." "I'm not leaving him," Doctor said. "I know," replied. She pulled over a chair, one that would support a human's strange two-legged posture. "Then rest here. I will stay as well. Neither of us should be alone tonight." And so they sat in the quiet clinic, 2 beings from different worlds, watching over a third who had brought them together. Outside, the station continued its endless rotation. But inside, in this small room, something important had happened. A promise had been kept. A life had been saved. And 2 strangers had become something more. Morning came slowly to station threshold 9. The artificial lights that mimicked a sun gradually brightened, signaling the start of a new day. Woke in her chair, her neck stiff from sleeping in an awkward position. All 6 of her hands had fallen asleep, tingling as blood flow returned. But the first thing she did was check the monitors. Lucky's vital signs were stronger than they had been the night before. His heart beat steadily at 65 times per minute. His temperature held at a stable 37 degrees. The wounds she had treated were beginning to heal, new tissue forming where there had been damage. Against all probability, he was recovering. Doctor was awake too, though she looked like she had not slept much. Her hand rested on Lucky's head, fingers moving through his fur in that now familiar pattern. Lucky's tail wagged weakly when he saw looking at him. His eyes, both of them now open, tracked her movements across the room. "Good morning," Doctor said. Her voice was hoarse from exhaustion, but there was happiness in it. Real, genuine happiness. "Good morning," replied. She began her examination of Lucky, checking each injury site carefully. Everything looked as good as could be expected. "He is doing well, much better than I thought possible last night." "He's a fighter," Doctor said. "He always has been." Before could respond, the clinic door opened. She turned, expecting to see and his partner returning to check on the quarantine situation. Instead, she saw someone who made her 4 hearts sink. It was Arbiter, one of the station's senior legal authorities. Behind him came 3 recording drones that would document everything said and done. Arbiter was a crystalline being whose body refracted light in complex patterns. Colors shifted across his surface as he moved, making it difficult to read his emotional state. He was accompanied by 2 assistants carrying data pads and what looked like official documentation. "Doctor," the Arbiter said, his voice emerging from a translator module embedded in his crystalline structure. "Dr. Sarah, I am here to address the violations that occurred in this facility yesterday." Doctor stood up, positioning herself between the Arbiter and Lucky. It was a protective gesture, instinctive and immediate. Felt her crest flatten in worry. This was what she had feared. They had saved Lucky's life, but now they would face consequences for breaking the rules. "What kind of violations?" Doctor asked. Her voice was calm but could see tension in her shoulders. The Arbiter's surface flickered through several colors before settling on a deep blue. "You, Doctor, are charged with smuggling an unregistered biological entity onto the station. You failed to comply with security directives when ordered to leave this facility. You endangered station safety by refusing to allow proper quarantine protocols." He paused, and more colors rippled across his body. "And according to the initial report, you made false promises to an animal, though I admit I am unclear on how that constitutes a legal violation." Despite the serious situation, Doctor's mouth twitched slightly. "The promise wasn't false," she said. "I told Lucky I would get him help. I did exactly that." The Arbiter turned too. "And you, Doctor, violated medical protocols by treating an unregistered species without proper authorization. You implemented a quarantine without following correct procedures. You potentially exposed yourself and your facility to unknown pathogens." The colors on his surface shifted to red, a sign of official disapproval. "These are serious charges. They could result in the revocation of your medical license and deportation for Doctor." Felt her crest press completely flat against her skull. She had known this might happen, but hearing it stated so officially made it real. She could lose everything she had worked for, and Doctor could be forced to leave the station, possibly sent back to Earth alone. "I understand," said quietly. "I accept responsibility for my actions, but I would do the same thing again." The Arbiter's colors stopped shifting. He stood very still, his crystalline structure catching and reflecting the clinic's lights. "Explain." "I became a veterinarian because I believe all creatures deserve care," said. Her voice grew stronger as she spoke. "Not just the registered ones, not just the ones that fit into neat categories and databases, all of them. Lucky was dying. His human was begging for help. I could have followed every protocol perfectly and let him die on my waiting room floor, but that would not have been medicine. That would have been bureaucracy choosing death over life." "Rules exist for logical reasons," the Arbiter said. "Unknown species carry unknown risks." "And known species carry known risks," countered. "Every patient I treat could potentially spread disease. Every surgery could fail and result in death. Every medication could cause unexpected reactions. Medicine is always about balancing risks against the value of life. Yesterday, I chose to value life. If that was wrong, then I am proud to be wrong." The Arbiter was silent for a long moment. Then he turned to Doctor. "And you, Doctor, what is your defense?" Doctor looked down at Lucky, who was watching this exchange with alert eyes. His tail wagged once when she looked at him. Then she turned back to the Arbiter. "I don't have a defense," she said simply. "I broke your rules. I knew I was breaking them when I brought Lucky onto this station. And I knew I was breaking them when I refused to leave yesterday. But Lucky has been part of my life for 13 years. He was there when my father died. He was there when I got the job that brought me to space. He was there through every important moment of my adult life. When I decided to leave Earth, I had a choice. I could follow the rules and abandon my best friend, or I could break the rules and keep my family together. I chose family." "So you value your personal attachment over the safety and order of the community?" the Arbiter asked. "I value my personal attachment as part of the community," Doctor replied. "A community that doesn't allow for love and loyalty and promises is just a collection of individuals following rules. It's not really a community at all." The Arbiter's surface began shifting through colors again, faster than before. Had dealt with enough to know this meant deep thought, internal debate. Finally, the colors settled into a soft green. "What you say is interesting," the Arbiter admitted. "And you are not the only one who thinks this way." He gestured toward the door and it opened again. This time entered along with several other station residents. There was a whose icy body glittered in the light, a whose plasma body flickered and danced. Even's own receptionist, a quiet who rarely spoke up about anything, stepped forward, his armor plates shifting in a gesture of formal address. "Arbiter, I wish to speak on behalf of Doctor and Doctor." "Proceed." "Yesterday, I was sent to remove an unregistered creature from this clinic," said. "I was prepared to use force if necessary. But what I witnessed changed my understanding of the situation. I saw a human refuse to abandon her companion even when threatened with arrest. I saw that companion, despite being in terrible pain, try to defend his human from perceived threats. And I saw a veterinarian risk her career to do what she believed was right. The spoke next, her words coming out as chiming sounds that the translator rendered into common language. I have lived on this station for 5 cycles. In that time, I have observed humans closely. They confuse me greatly. They are illogical and emotional, and they form attachments to everything. But I have also seen them share food with strangers, help beings they have never met, and refuse to accept that anyone should suffer if they can prevent it. Yesterday, I watched through the window of this clinic for hours. I saw Doctor comfort her companion, and I understood something I had not before. Humans do not just form attachments, they keep promises. That is what makes them different. One by one, the witnesses spoke. They told of how Doctor had helped it navigate human customs when it first arrived, expecting nothing in return. The receptionist quietly admitted she had known about Lucky for months and said nothing because she had seen how much he meant to Doctor. Even the station botanist came forward, confessing that she had been growing Earth-native plants specifically to feed Lucky, another violation of regulations that she had considered worthwhile. The arbiter listened to all of this, his surface cycling through dozens of colors. When everyone had finished speaking, he was silent for a long time. The recording drones hovered around him, documenting everything. Finally, he spoke. I have reviewed the charges, I have heard the testimonies, and I have reached a decision. He paused, and his surface flashed bright white, a color had never seen on it before. The law is very clear about violations. Regulations were broken, protocols were ignored. By every standard measure, both Doctor and Doctor should face significant penalties. His crest flattened completely. This was it, the end of her career, but at least Lucky was alive. That would have to be enough. However, the arbiter continued, and his color shifted to deep purple, the law is not just about punishment. It is about creating a society where all beings can live together safely and productively. And sometimes, the law must adapt to serve that purpose rather than simply enforce rigid rules. He gestured toward Lucky with one crystalline appendage. This creature has now been medically documented. His biology has been scanned and recorded. Doctor's treatment protocols have been logged and can serve as reference for future incidents. In effect, what should have been done through official channels has been accomplished through emergency action. The end result is the same, only the method differed. Doctor's eyes widened. What are you saying? I am saying that I am issuing an official reprimand to both of you, the arbiter said. This will be noted in your records, but I am also issuing a directive that you both work with station administration to develop proper protocols for companion animals. Doctor, you will provide training to other medical personnel on Earth canine biology and on the treatment of species not in our standard databases. Doctor, you will register Lucky officially and ensure he completes all required health certifications. And both of you will participate in creating a new framework that allows beings to maintain companion relationships while still ensuring station safety. Felt her crest rising slowly, unable to believe what she was hearing. You are not revoking my license. You saved a life using medical knowledge and improvisation, the arbiter said. Those are exactly the qualities we need in station medical personnel. Why would I remove someone so capable? He turned to Doctor. And you, Doctor, demonstrated loyalty and determination that resulted in a positive outcome for all involved. You broke rules, yes, but you did so in a way that ultimately improved our community by revealing gaps in our regulations. That is not something to punish. That is something to acknowledge and learn from. Doctor seemed unable to speak. She simply nodded, one hand moving back to Lucky's head. The arbiter began to leave, his assistants and the recording drones following. But at the door he paused and looked back. The galactic community brings together thousands of species from across the galaxy. We all have different biologies, different cultures, different values, but there are some things that transcend those differences. Love, loyalty, the refusal to abandon those who depend on us. Perhaps humans understand this better than most. Perhaps that is what they bring to the community. Not their technology or their science, but their persistent, illogical, wonderful insistence that no one should face death or suffering alone if it can be prevented. Then he was gone, and the clinic was quiet again except for Lucky's breathing and the soft beeping of medical monitors. Doctor sat back down in her chair looking stunned. Did that really just happen? I think it did, said, her crest now fully raised in a gesture of joy and relief, though I am not entirely certain I did not dream it. Lucky barked once, a short sound that made them both laugh. It was a good bark, strong and clear, the bark of an animal that was going to survive. 3 weeks later, Lucky walked out of clinic on all 4 legs. The missing leg had been replaced with a prosthetic that had designed using principles from 6 different species medical technologies. It was a work of art, really, adapting so many different approaches to work with Earth canine biology. Lucky moved a bit stiffly, still getting used to the new leg, but he moved without pain. Doctor walked beside him, one hand resting lightly on his head. They paused at the clinic door, and Doctor turned back to. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything." "Thank you," replied, "for teaching me that sometimes the most important medical decision is the simplest one. Easy there, friend. I will remember that lesson always." Lucky walked over to and sat down in front of her. He looked up at her with both eyes, both fully healed and clear. Then he lifted one paw, the one with the prosthetic, and held it out toward her. Understood. She had seen Doctor do this with Lucky many times during his recovery. It was a gesture of friendship and respect. She reached out with one of her 6 hands and gently placed it on Lucky's paw. "You are welcome, Lucky," she said. "And you are officially the first registered Earth canine on Station Threshold 9. Congratulations." Lucky barked again, his tail wagging in wide, happy arcs. Then he and Doctor left the clinic, walking out into the busy station corridor where dozens of different species moved past them without a second glance. Just another resident and her companion, nothing unusual to see. But stood at her clinic door and watched them go, and she thought about how much had changed in just 3 weeks. The station had new regulations now, the Lucky Accord as it was being called. Other humans on the station had started bringing forward their own hidden companions, registering them officially for the first time. There was talk of creating a companion animal area on the station, a place where beings could bring their friends without fear of breaking rules. And had gained something she had not expected. A friend. Doctor stopped by the clinic regularly, sometimes with Lucky and sometimes alone, just to talk. She brought Earth foods for to try, taught her about human culture and biology, and listened with genuine interest when talked about her own world and people. A week after Lucky's discharge, a receptionist called her to the front desk. "Doctor, there's someone here who says their companion needs help." Came out to find a standing in her waiting room. It was, and in his arms he carried a small creature that chirped and sang with a voice like crystal bells. A singing mite, grown old and sick but still making music. "I heard you treat companions now," said, "even unregistered ones." His crest rose in welcome. "Always," she said. "Bring him back to the examination room. Let us see what we can do." As she led to the back, she passed the small plaque that now hung on her wall beside her medical certifications. Doctor had made it, using materials from Earth and techniques from 3 other species. It was simple and elegant, and it read, "Sometimes the best medicine is the simplest. Easy there, friend." Touched the plaque gently with one hand as she walked past. Then she went to help another creature, keep another promise, and prove once again that the space between species could be bridged with compassion and care. Outside the clinic, station life continued its endless rhythm. Ships came and went. Beings from across the galaxy worked and lived together. The great experiment of the galactic community rolled forward into an uncertain future. But in one small clinic on Station Threshold 9, something important had been learned. That rules existed to serve life, not to constrain it. That promises mattered more than regulations. And that sometimes, the most advanced medicine in the galaxy could be summed up in 3 simple words. Easy there, friend. The universe was vast and strange and full of dangers, but it was also full of beings who cared, who helped, who refused to let others suffer alone. And that, thought as she began examining Singing Might, was what really mattered in the end. Not the rules we followed, but the lives we saved. Not the protocols we maintained, but the promises we kept. Not the regulations we enforced, but the friendships we made across the impossible distances between species and worlds and ways of thinking. Easy there, friend. It was enough. It would always be enough.